everyone. This is the Ophthalmology Business Podcast, where we help you develop your ideal practice with help of other doctors and experts. The topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I'm Sarah Duval, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy at www.obacademy.org. The membership is on us, and it's our gift to you. Today, I am excited to talk to Naren Arulrajah, founder of the Ophthalmology Business Academy, ophthalmology marketing consultant, and CEO of Ekwa Marketing, about how to make 2023 your best year yet with powerful marketing. Let's go. Naren, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I really enjoy talking to you. You ask really good questions, and I know this is a good topic. So I think we're going to have some fun. And the topic I think would be very timely because of when it's coming out, and we have 2023 ahead of us. So anything they can do to make this the best year yet from a marketing standpoint, the practice owners, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Yes, I think this is an exciting topic. It's something that's a lot more fun to me than many other topics. So let's jump right in here. So Naren, looking at 2022, can you let me know 5 reasons that practices did not do well in 2022 with regards to new patient flow?
Absolutely. I think it's a good idea to learn from what people are doing right and what people are doing wrong. I think it's a great idea to kind of review 2022, and we work with a few hundred practices. So I get to see the best, and I get to see the biggest mistakes. So let's start by talking about the biggest reasons why some practices did not do well in 2022. The first reason is, I believe, the practice owners, the doctor, the administrator, or both of them, do not understand how a buyer buys in 2023 and beyond, meaning the process they go through, the thinking they go through, and how they come to that decision. And there's a lot of misconceptions of what they do and don't do, and those misconceptions can lead us down a dark alley. We'll get into each one of these reasons and how to avoid them and so forth as we go through this podcast. The second reason practices don't do well in 2023 is Google drives most of the new patients because a lot of people start by searching what they're looking for online. 95% of the ophthalmology practices, unfortunately, do not do well with SEO. And again, we'll get into this reason why 95% of practices totally fail when it comes to SEO.
Really?
Next thing I want to talk about, the third reason is, practices also sometimes end up wasting money with the wrong type of marketing. One example is AdWords, and we'll touch on why it's more expensive than SEO and other options out there, and how practices end up wasting money. The fourth reason is really simple, but it's so basic, and many practices don't do well at it. It's called call conversions, meaning, of the total number of calls you are getting, what percentage of calls are from new patients? So for example, if you're getting 100 calls and you are converting all 100 of them, into appointments, that means your call conversion rate is 100%. So we'll talk about what the average call conversion rate in ophthalmology is and how to change that. Fifth point that I want to touch on is, the successful practices do a morning meeting, like a planning, let's make the most of today kind of a meeting. Unfortunately, the ones that do not succeed, don't do that meeting. So we'll talk about that meeting and how perhaps you can also benefit from it.
Okay, sounds good. So let's tick off your list then. So let's start by talking about the ophthalmology buyer's journey.
Perfect. So like I kind of alluded to today, 90% of the patients, when they're looking for ophthalmology, of course, if there's an emergency and they get referred, that's a different story. But unless it's an emergency and they're being referred by somebody else, more than likely they start their journey by typing in what they're interested in. I'm looking for cataract, or I'm looking for refractive surgery, whatever they are interested in, they start by educating themselves. And that education starts on Google. They go to Google, start typing in what they're looking for. And Google, of course, know where they're located. So, for example, I'm in, a certain zip code or certain city, Google knows that. So little by little, Google will start showing you answers from people around you. And of course, a lot of people will also type in the city name because they are specifically looking for, solutions in a particular city. Some people will type in the phrase at the end, near me. So, I'm looking for XYZ near me, refractive surgery near me, or the zip code. So they start typing in hundreds and hundreds of search terms. How do I know this? Because we work with several ophthalmology practices, and many of our clients, are being found for literally, 3, 4, 500 different search terms. Mm-hmm. So that's where everything starts. So the first step is you have to show up. When it comes to the ophthalmology buyer's journey, you as the practice owner has to show up at the top of Google without, you having to pay money for ads. And the reason I prefer, you show up organically versus through ads is because when you show up organically, people trust you, people believe in you. So they are more likely to, take that person they're evaluating, that doctor they're evaluating more seriously. When we see an ad next to your name, we know, anybody can buy an ad. So we are looking with doubt. So that's where the buyer's journey starts. And now what happens is, let's say I typed in a particular search term, refractive surgery. I end up on a page where you talk about refractive surgery. This is true for almost all healthcare buyers. What they're doing is they're spending an average of 90 seconds if they come through SEO, and they're spending an average of 15 seconds if they come through Google Ads. And in those 90 seconds, assuming they're coming through SEO, meaning you showed up for free at the top of Google search, then they're trying to answer 3 questions. If the answer is yes, yes, yes for all 3 questions, your phone is more than likely going to ring. What are those questions? First is, are you an expert? Today, we think, medicine is specialized. So if I'm looking for something specific like cataract surgery or whatever the topic is, I want to find a doctor who I think is an expert in that topic. The second question they're asking is, okay, can I trust you? Like how many cases have you done? What do other patients have to say about you? What do Google reviews say? Like, can I trust you? Like, in other words, I'm taking a risk. I'm taking my eye and, having you, do surgery on it. Like, am I going to be okay? So that's the first question. Can I trust you? Second question, actually. The third question they're asking is, do I like you? Because healthcare is very personal, they want to make sure that you are someone they feel comfortable with, someone they can listen to, someone who will understand them. So they feel like they're not kind of, working with someone they don't really feel comfortable with. Now, how do you do that in 90 seconds? That's the challenge. Many doctors don't, understand the buyer's journey. So they're doing everything that's not necessarily, optimizing for the buyer's journey. So they are like focused on design. They are, doing all kinds of things that are kind of distracting the, potential buyer, i.e. patient, from, finding them and then choosing them by answering these questions effectively. The successful ones, of course, get it and optimize their practice, optimize their website so that the entire buyer's journey is working for them as opposed to working against them.
So it sounds like it's actually better than to show up organically as opposed to actually buying ads, right?
Absolutely.
So then why would I want to buy an ad? Why do people buy ads if it's not going to serve me as well as showing up at the top of the list organically?
Absolutely. The reason people buy ads is showing up organically is hard. Now, it's by design. Google made $209 billion in the fiscal year 2021. So that's the last year I have data for. That Google made $209 billion just from Google Ads. They have other businesses, but just Google Ads alone brought in $209 billion. Just to understand how big this number is, if Google Ads were a country, it would be the 56th richest country in the world.
Oh my gosh.
There are 170 countries with millions and sometimes 100 million plus people that make less money than Google makes with Google Ads every year. So put yourself in Google's shoes. how do I make more money every year so my stock price keeps going up and all the CEOs and all the top executives get bigger and bigger bonuses? Well, I have to make SEO, that is free traffic, extremely hard, right? If I make getting free traffic extremely hard, then you have no choice but to buy ads, because that's the only way you're going to grow your business. So ophthalmologists spend hundreds of millions, I've heard estimates as high as $1 billion+ on Google ads every year. Why? Because that's the only way for many, many people to get new patients. Because what Google does is they send all the free traffic to 5% of the websites, meaning only 5% of ophthalmology practices get majority of the free traffic from SEO, which now forces the 95% to give Google, tons of money to get traffic the other way, which is through ads.
Isn't that something? Wow, I did not realize this. So, one could spend money on an ad to really get the phone ringing and get established, and then eventually they'll probably start to show up organically and they can nix the ad. Is that accurate? Or
yeah, 95% of the practices get no traffic from almost no traffic from for free from Google Organic. So many practices always have to depend on ads because they don't have a plan B. Like that's their only plan. If my only option is either I don't grow my practice or I spend a lot of money with Google ads and grow my practice, many people say, well, I'll spend the money because I don't have any other option, right? That's unfortunately the reality for most ophthalmology practices. But if you can figure out how to be in the 5% of practices that is getting 95% of the free traffic through SEO, then you have an advantage. That 5%, imagine, getting into the top medical school in the world, right? You're not going to get into the top medical school unless you are in the top of your class, unless you are in the top 5%, top 2% of your class, right? And but because SEO is free, nobody can yell at Google for making it so hard to get the free traffic, right? So, Google is pretty much doing you a favor. So nobody can complain, oh, only 5% of us benefit from the free stuff and everybody else has to pay money. So I think my advice is, when you're starting out, like you said, Sarah, ads are a good place to start because you need patients. Doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter how expensive they are. But eventually you want to start controlling the amount of money you spend to attract those high value patients for those surgeries, for all the different parts of the business that you want to grow. So to do that, you need to learn how to be in the top 5% who get 95% of the free SEO traffic. And like I said, that's the second mistake people make. They don't necessarily, master how they don't necessarily learn how to be in that 5% that's going to get 95% of the free traffic.
So that was actually going to be my next question is, how do I get to be in that top 5%? What do I need to do?
That's a great question. The two founders of Google met when they were doing their PhD at Stanford. And I alluded to the top medical school. As you know, Stanford is one of the top schools, period, in the world.
Right.
So it doesn't matter pretty much what program you're applying to, it's extremely hard to get into Stanford. So to get into Stanford, I'm just going to use undergrad as an example. You need to have extremely good SAT scores. Like you're probably getting like 1,500 out of 1,600. You are in the top 1% for your SAT scores. You probably need to have a 4.0 GPA, which means, again, you are in the top 2, 3, 4, 5% of all high school students with regards to GPA. You probably have written amazing essays that just makes people want to cry. Again, you're in the top when it comes to your
beautiful.
It's so beautiful, so moving. It's like, anyways, then you have references that are extremely impactful and powerful. You have done unbelievable extracurriculars where you stand out. So pretty much the way these schools are picking the students, given they have so many applicants, is they're trying to see who's the top in every one of those 5 or 6 categories. And then if you are the top in every one of those 5 or 6 categories, then you be one of the lucky ones to get into Stanford, right? Now, again, now most undergraduate programs in the US, I'm talking about the best undergraduate programs, depending on your income level or your parents' income level, it's free. So pretty much the whole world can apply to Stanford. At least any American can apply to Stanford. Technically, it's not based on money. So that what that means is there's so much more demand, right? It's no longer like you have to pay, $80,000 a year to get in. Pretty much you can attend Stanford for free as long as you get in. So the competition is fierce. So the way they figure it out is you're getting A in all these 6 categories. Google is the same way. There are 6 buckets. If you get an A in all 6 buckets, then you become one of the top 5% that gets all the free traffic. So what are those categories? I'm just going to name them. I'm not going to go into details, so at least you know what they are. First one is NAP consistency, which stands for name, address, phone number consistency. And it never ends. You can keep working on more and more and more and more NAP sites. And you can have 10 NAP sites that have consistent information, or you can have 100. Of course, the one with 100 NAP sites with consistent information has a huge leg up, or seen as an AA plus versus somebody who only has 1 or 2 NAP sites. When we start with a client, most clients suck at this. I mean, they're getting an F at this with NAP. Second one is original content. Google has extremely strict guidelines on what Google likes and what it doesn't like with regards to, the words on your pages. I mean, how many words you use. Google hates anybody copying anything. So even if you have like a sentence that's copied, you will get penalized. So again, do you have original content page by page by page? That's the second one.
So wait, whoa. What do you mean even if I have a sentence copied? I mean, there could be a sentence on my page that's going to show up on hundreds of other ophthalmology practice pages.
Right.
So can we get into that, or does it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into that. So Google says, if you really want me to give you an A when it comes to original content, I prefer you to have 95% or higher original content. So let's do some simple math. If you are looking at a page with 400 words, 95% is 300 let me do my math correctly, 380 words, which means 5% is 20 words. So if you have anything more than 20 words that are word for word matching or phrase for phrase matching with some other website on the planet, you are going to get penalized. Of course, this is hard because most people don't write original. So what Google wants is they want you to write your own content. They don't want you to lift paragraphs or phrases or, sections from other websites and then just keep reusing them. If you do that, then you will get penalized. So the best way to do this is to have writers who specialize in ophthalmology writing and have them write just for you. And then there is a tool called Copyscape, and copyscape.com. You can get a paid subscription with them. And then when you run a page through that website, it's linked to Google. It'll tell you what Google sees. If Google sees certain paragraphs or certain, groups of 20 plus words that are similar to some other website, then you're going to get penalized. So you need to rewrite that section. So it's really, really important. So we have writers who write original content articles, and then we put it through Copyscape to make sure it stays original. And the other issue that you need to understand is once you start ranking for hundreds of keywords, like every single client we work with after a year typically ranks for 100 plus keywords, what will happen is others will start copying you, because a lot of people don't understand how Google works. They notice you keep showing up all the time, and they think by copying you, they are going to show up too. The problem is, imagine 2 people copying each other and the teacher finds out. Teacher will end up punishing both the person who copied and the person who it was copied from, because they don't know who's the culprit, right? So they punish both of them. Google does the same thing. So not only do you need to have original content, have writers who write everything just for you, but then you need to keep checking to see if others are copying you at least once a month. And if they are, you have 2 options. You can call a lawyer and send a letter asking them to remove that section, which will take months and cost you lots and lots of money. Or you can call your writer and have them rewrite it. So again, in our teams, like we have 14 teams, there's an entire team dedicated to finding these kind of duplicate content issues and then rewriting them. The other 4 areas are quality backlinks, like who's linking to you, and are those links considered to be relevant and quality as per Google. Google is very, very specific on what's good link and what's bad link. You want more and more pages to have quality backlinks as defined by Google. Google Eat, It stands for expertise, authority, trust. Google has higher set of standards for certain industries, and you have to comply with those standards. Healthcare is one of them. And if you are in those industries, then you're going to be, looked at much more critically. Or Google reviews is one more thing that Google looks at. So there are 6 things it looks at. And the key is you have to keep improving in these 6 areas week after week, month after month. And you have to keep doing it forever. The last one is Google Lighthouse score. That's a score Google gives you page by page by page. So the way we handle it is we have 9 teams focused on these 6 areas, and every month on behalf of our clients, they just keep working on them. So whoever does it, doesn't matter. You need a team that's working in these 6 areas every month. So if you get an A in all 6 areas, you're going to be seen as a 5% site that deserves 95% of the free traffic per Google. So you're going to get a ton of free sites. Now, the reason they do that is we all use Google to see what the organic results are. So they need us. They need all these amazing, sites that are ranking so well. But at the same time, they want to keep that number very small to 5% or less, so that the rest of the practice owners have to pay Google ad money.
This is mind-blowing. I mean, for people who might not have big marketing or advertising budgets, and they want to do all their marketing and Google and all that in-house, I mean, this is a lot. This is really a lot. And I don't think the average person would know all of this. So, and you don't know what you don't know. So this is very cumbersome, I'm thinking, for people who maybe can't afford to retain an agency who really understands this stuff.
I agree. I think when Google first came about, things were simple and not this complicated because Google didn't know Google changes 1,000 times a year. So 3 times a day. So it just keeps changing so much. So there's so much to it. You can literally read thousands of pages of, instructions on the do's and the don'ts of how to work with Google. And unfortunately, you can't do it alone. You need an army of experts, and each expert just focuses on their piece. But the advantage is if you get into that 5%, you have an unfair advantage. For example, if you're going to spend with very effective SEO, let's say $1,000, to get the same benefit from Google Ads, you will have to spend $10,000. So the ones who master it, it's a huge game changer, but it takes at least a year to master it, and then you can never let up. You have to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it.
I feel like we could have another whole episode or 2 or 3 just talking about this.
Yeah, I know. Every one of these 5 things could be a separate episode. Every one of the 5 points that we're just touching on today.
I think they should be. I mean, I'm hooked. I can't wait to go back and actually listen to this episode and take notes because oh my gosh, this is crazy. Okay, so another question I had, and I'm so dumbfounded over here that maybe we even touched on it. I wanted to ask you if you could explain why and how ophthalmic practices waste money on AdWords. Did we cover that yet, did we?
I kind of covered it from a business model standpoint. I said Google makes $209 billion, and of course, they want to keep making more money. So the way they do that is they make SEO super hard and they make ads more expensive. The other reason why it's so expensive is I'll explain it from a psychology perspective. When someone uses Google, they have an intention, meaning they're typing in a specific keyword because they're interested in a specific service, refractive surgery, whatever they're interested in. That's called intention. Mm-hmm. Now, when they see it for free, meaning as an SEO link, they trust that link because it's not an ad. But when they see it with the word ad next to it, they don't trust it. So one thing we notice is a person who comes from SEO will spend 90 seconds. A person who comes from ads will spend 15 seconds. So when I divide 90 by 15, there is a 6x multiple, which means you need 10 times or 6 to 10 times more people coming to you through ads to equal one person who comes to you from SEO. So not only are you paying $3-4 per click, but you need 10 times as many people to get the same impact from a single person coming from SEO because they don't trust you. So when somebody doesn't trust you because they're clicking on an ad, they are looking for reasons to leave your site as quickly as possible. In other words, oh, it's an ad anyway, so what's the catch? So of course they find something that irritates them, they're out, and on average they spend 15 seconds. The problem with 15 seconds is it's hard to convince someone in 90 seconds that they should choose you. So it's almost impossible to convince someone in 15 seconds, which is why I think ads are really expensive. But I've seen practices spending $100,000, $150,000 on Google ads because they feel like that's their only choice. But when you multiply that over a 10-year period, 20-year period, you're getting into millions of dollars, right? So it can really eat up a lot of money. So my advice when it comes to ads is use it when you are a startup or use it sparingly for a short time. But definitely be one of those 5% practice owners who crush or dominate Google SEO, because then you have an unfair advantage that's going to give you such a huge advantage in terms of, your ability to succeed in the marketplace.
Okay. I do actually now remember you touching on that earlier on in the conversation. So, but you know what? It's good information, so I think it bared repeating. So, so let's talk a little bit about something else that you mentioned earlier, and that was call conversions. So talk to us a little bit about call conversions. What are they, and what's the problem? Where are we getting it wrong?
Yeah, most people who work in ophthalmology practices, the ones answering the phones, are not trained as salespeople, right? So they see themselves as, I'm here to answer questions. And also, most practices don't know what their call conversion percentage is. It's like, if you don't measure something, you can't improve it. I mean, imagine doing an exam and you don't know what your score is. Like, you don't know whether you got 85 or 97. Of course, the minute you know you got 85, you're going to look at what questions you got wrong, and you're going to see what topics that they cover, and you're going to study those topics, and then you master it, and then you do the same exam again. Now, instead of getting 85, you're getting 92 or 95 because you worked on the areas you are weak on. Because like 80-90% of practice, I would say 90% of practices don't know what their call conversion rate is. They don't even know how good or bad they are. 90%. They assume they are good, right? We all assume we are the best, everything is perfect in our world, but they have no idea. And when we did some studies, we noticed that the average practice, the healthcare practice, including ophthalmology practice, is only converting 1/3 of new patient calls when it comes to high value services. So in other words, if you get 100 new patients who are interested in, having you do some high value work for them, like, surgery or etc., most practices are only effective 1/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time, they're not effective. So the key is you need to know what your call conversion rate is. And the only way to do that is to listen to all the calls, figure out which calls were converted into appointments and which were not, or hire a third-party company that does that, and then use that metric, and then use some coaching to train your team month after month after month, so the call conversion rate keeps going up. And the other issue that I see a lot is many practices miss a lot of calls. In the old days, people would leave a voicemail and call back. Today, they don't have the patience. So they would go to the next person they found on Google and call that office, as opposed to just leave a voicemail and wait 2 days or even like 2 hours for you to call them back.
Absolutely. That, unfortunately, that is the way that we seem to operate these days, isn't it? We can't wait for anything.
We can't wait for anything. Like, even in Uber, right? It's 7 minutes. We don't wait. We go out to Lyft and, get a ride in 4 minutes.
And it's really hard because with, probably one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, and it's not unique to ophthalmology or even healthcare, everywhere, is being short-staffed, right?
Yes.
There's not enough people to answer the phones in many cases. You and I were having a brief conversation before we went on the air today about how I've been working in the call center of my practice this week because we are short-staffed.
Right.
And it's so hard. Like, I don't think I would want to know the number of calls that we may have missed this week, since you brought that up, because there just aren't enough people to answer the phones, and they're probably not leaving messages, and they probably are going on to the next person, and it's scary, but unfortunately that's what many practices are dealing with right now. It's hard.
100%.
Yeah. So, okay.
I mean, the fact that you have a call center, you have thought about it. You realize you need a center of excellence. So, I mean, so your team is, of course, I think in a better place than most practices, that don't focus on it like you guys are.
Yeah, we have it. I know some practices, maybe within half an hour of mine, where, and granted, it's a smaller practice, but they answer their phones right at their front desk. So these people are trying to check patients in, check patients out, and answering the phones. We admittedly are a higher volume practice than this one particular that I'm thinking of, but we have a dedicated call center.
Right.
I can't imagine not, honestly, with the volume of calls that we get. I can't imagine not having a dedicated call center. But even so, we're not 100% because we're not fully staffed. So that's a whole other conversation. So finally, let's review something that you touched upon early on in the conversation. You mentioned this thing called the morning crunch. Tell me about what is that?
So the morning crunch, I mean, if you want to have a great week, you need to start by having a great day, right? Because what is a great week? It's 5 days, stacked on one on top of the other, right? So 5 great days stacked. So how do you do that? So I'm a fan of the most successful practices. And one thing I notice is the most successful practices have a 5 to 7 minute meetings in the morning. And some call it morning huddle, some call it morning crunch, where they kind of review what's going to happen the whole day. Who are they going to see? What are some of the complications that might come up? What if somebody has an emergency? When can those people be fit in? Like for example, nowadays you also need to work on getting Google reviews. Who are some of the people we should ask to write a Google review for us? So they just kind of prep for the day. They kind of get ready for the day. So everyone is on the same page. Everyone is psyched. Everyone is ready to kind of rock and roll. And that 5 to 7 minute meeting is something that I notice like all the top 5% practices do, because it just gets the entire team aligned and focused. It's not a big meeting. It's not like, you're going to sit there and, have a coffee and have this lengthy 30-minute conversation. It's pretty fast, pretty effective right before you start the day. And I would recommend, because I noticed that the best practices do this, I would strongly recommend that you as a practice owner have something like this, where every day you're planning and getting ready for the day.
So could this be done departmentally, or are you suggesting that the entire practice comes together in one spot?
I would recommend the entire practice, but of course, I think it depends on the practice size. If you have like a huge practice with 40 people, that might be, impractical, right? So in those cases, you may have to do things departmentally. But if you have like anything less than 10 people, yeah, I would recommend, everyone come together and have this quick 5-7 minute meeting. And if somebody can't make it because they have to drop off their kid, then they need to have a person who's their buddy who's going to get them up to speed as to what were some of the things that they need to know for their role based on what happened in the meeting. The advantage of having everyone in the room at the same time is, like everyone can talk about their piece or just, see it from their angle, but together they work as a team.
Gotcha. So that sounds good. I mean, I know in my practice, it would have to be departmentally, but certainly some of the smaller practices, I can see that. So that's a great idea. I like that. And the morning crunch, when you first said that, I thought, are we talking about cereal or? Like, where is he going with this? Okay. So let's wrap this up here. One final question, if I may. I want to make 2023 the best year yet and increase new patient flow here in my practice. So where do I start? How can you help me with that?
Absolutely. I run a marketing company, so I definitely know a thing or two about marketing. The metric I'm most proud of is 95% of our clients, including ophthalmology clients, we only work with doctors, stay with us year after year. So one of the things we offer at no cost is what we call a marketing strategy meeting. What we do is we spend 6 hours doing research, and we study 2 things. How are you doing on Google? Like, are you ranking for hundreds of keywords or not? And then we go to the next step, right? Remember, to be in that 5% that gets 95% of the free SEO traffic, you have to do well in 6 areas. So we'll look at each one of those 6 areas and give you a grade. Like, okay, a NAP, you're getting an A or you're getting a C. And then not only do we give you a grade, we'll also give you a plan. So regardless of whether you're getting a C or a D or a B, these are the things you need to do over the next 12 months, assuming we were to execute them. And here are the goals that you need to set and work on over the next 12 months to get an A in all these areas. Now, marketing is two parts. One is people know you as a solution. That's where Google comes in. Second one is, why should they call you? Why should they work with you? That's where like the second part of the buyer's journey, where in 90 seconds is making them see you as an expert, making them like you and making them trust you comes into play. So we also have 5 teams focused on that. So we, again, in our marketing strategy meeting, look at how are you influencing these people to choose you? Are you doing an A+ job or you are not? What are your gaps? What you need to work on? So again, we'll give you a report card and a game plan for 12 months. So my recommendation is it's a $900 value, ekwa.com/MSM, and it's at no cost, ekwa.com/MSM. Go sign up and go through this process and figure out A, where you stand, and B, what you need to do if you want to be in the top 5% when it comes to new patient flow. And then take that plan and implement it. Whether you use us or some other company, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you have somebody you trust implementing or working on all these areas.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Naren, for joining me today and talking about how to make 2023 our best year yet with Power for Marketing. I think this has been a really great conversation. And I think when people go to listen to it, they're going to want to be able to take notes because there's so much good information in it for free, basically. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your friends and on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Till we meet again, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.